get busy.
All right, well, let's welcome you guys to the order of operations lesson we got here for you today. This is a review all the way back to 6th grade, but this is definitely something you need to know, so we want to make sure you know it.
Woo!
Mr. Craig, Ms. Garcia, super excited about this lesson today.
Yes!
So order of operations, this is simply what that is. In what order do we do our operations, like addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, all those? What order do we do those? There is a set pattern that we need to follow, and we're going to list these out here. You guys remember PEMDAS or maybe GEMDAS, GEMDAS. We're going to get to that in just a second. But this is basically all those one by one, step by step order of operations. First step is simplifying expressions inside grouping symbols like parentheses. Now we want to focus on the word grouping symbols today because parentheses are not the only type of grouping symbols. So let's take a look at those grouping symbols. First thing is parentheses. You guys know about parentheses. We're going to go quickly over that. Brackets are not as commonly used, but they can be used. They're just like square parentheses. The next one is absolute values. If you guys remember that changes anything that's negative inside the positive. You want to make sure you take care of all your absolute values as grouping symbols. And right here we have the square root, or the radical. A radical, you might remember from 8th grade, is something like this. A radical is something like square root of 4, which is 2. You need to make sure those are all taken care of as grouping symbols. After you figure out what all your grouping symbols, make sure they're all simplified, you're going to move on to the next step, which is finding all the values of the powers.
Power!
Powers. Powers are just exponents. Something like 2 squared, which is 4. You want to make sure you simplify all those. After you finish all your grouping symbols and all your exponents and powers, then you want to move on to multiplying and dividing. Not multiply, then divide. Multiply and divide in order from left to right. The reason why we go from left to right is because just like we read a sentence, we're going to read the sentence from left to right. We read all expressions from left to right, so we're going to do all the multiplication and division at the same time from left to right. The next step is all those fractions. They need to be taken care of while doing your division. However, when we're talking about grouping symbols, we need to make sure that we know that numerators and denominators are also grouping symbols. So if I had something like this, I can't go and do the fraction because I have grouping symbols. Technically what we have here is a grouping symbol in the numerator and the denominator. We need to make sure those are taken care of first because that's step 1. We need to do the 2 plus 6 first because that's in grouping symbols. And that would of course just be 8 over 4. And now we can do the division operator because all the grouping symbols are taken care of. There's no exponents or powers to take care of. And now we can do our multiplication and division. In this case, it's a fraction, so it's division. 8 divided by 4 would be 2. And then lastly, we're going to do all of our addition in order from left to right.
Mr. Nelson, I'm confused. How come we did plussing before dividing if we do adding and subtraction last?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reason why we did our addition here first before we did our division is because the addition is taken care of within the grouping symbols. First things first, again, deal with these grouping symbols inside first. That's what you got to do. Grouping symbols, look inside the grouping symbols. Well, the only thing that we can do in there is 2 plus 6. So we have to do that. Then that comes out of the grouping symbols. 8 divided by 4. Now I can do my division. That's a good question.
Okay.
All right, well, let's move on to our next slide.
All right, so this is the abbreviation that we are going to be using, and if you were one of my students or one of Mr. Christensen's students, I know you've seen this. So we've got GEMDAS. Grouping symbols, like Mr. Nelson said, always come first, then exponents are what we simplify next. Now, multiplication and division, like mentioned on the last slide, need to happen at the same time in order from left to right. So really, this looks a bit more like this. And then after multiplication and division, we can hit addition and subtraction, same idea as multiplication and division, at the same time, just in order from left to right, because that's how we read.
Ms. Garcia?
Yes.
I was taught PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Why is it GEMDAS?
Because parentheses are not the only type of grouping symbol we have. We have been changing it to a G instead of the P for grouping. So we don't have, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we have Generals eat many desserts and Skittles. I like Skittles. Any other
Giant
questions?
elephants mean dad is awesome and sad. I don't know.
I mean, giant elephants would also make me pretty sad. I'd be a little scared there.
Okay, well, one more question.
Yes, Mr. Craig.
What do you mean same time?
Same time. So it's whatever one comes first. So in a problem, if we got multiplication and division, let's say we've got 2 times 4 divided by, well, let's do another 2. It's order from left to right, so 2 times 4 comes first, which is an 8, and then we've got 8 divided by 2 left, then we can divide, so I've got 4. If that happened in the opposite direction, so say we've got 8 divided by 2 times 3. We still have multiplication and division, but we need to go in order from left to right. So we do 8 divided by 2 first, and then we have times 3 left, which simplifies down to 12.
Order of operations.
Order of operations. All right, let's see some examples from this really tall board. There we go.
Cool. So I have this problem here that I gotta do. It's 20 plus 10 times 3. So I go to my Gem DOS, say, "What's up, Jim? How you doing?" She says, "How you doing?" back to me, or he, doesn't matter. And I go, "Oh yeah, I gotta make sure I do what Mr. Nelson and Miss Garcia said, is put it down as G, as I don't know what it's saying." But I go through here, I see, okay, I see a plus, but if I go through my Gem DOS from left to right, addition, or plus, is at the end, so I'm not doing that first, and I keep going through from left to right. I'm like, oh, multiplication. Well, I don't have any grouping symbols, I don't have any exponents, but I do have multiplication, so I'm going to do that first. And so I'm going to show you a little arrow going down here to show what's happening. I'm combining those terms. So I have 20 plus 10 times 3 is 30. And now I have the problem rewritten as 20 plus 30. Well, I'm going from left to right again. And I see that now, because there's no exponent, grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication, division, I do have addition. 20 plus 30 is 50. So my final answer is 50. That's how you do that. However, if I have a different problem, here's another problem, kind of like Miss Garcia did in the board earlier. I go to my Gem DOS, make sure I put it in the right order, get that finger out of there, and I go from left to right. Do I have any grouping symbols? No. Do I have any exponents? No. I do have multiplication, division, but this is where we're talking about the same time. What I mean by the same time is that whatever I see first, and in this case, I see division before I see multiplication. So as I read from left to right, I'm going to go 30 divided by 10. 30 divided by 10 is 3, correct? And now I bring down what I haven't done yet, and then I go back and start again from left to right. And as I go from left to right, the only thing left here is multiplication. And so I got 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and so my answer is 9. All right. Next, Mr. Nelson, why don't you come up here and do the next problem for us? Actually, that's the end of that lesson.